So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here, and thanks to NNPCF and Contact for inviting me to talk today. So I'm going to be talking about health and SEND and understanding health structures at a national level, and then nationally, regionally and locally, and working with your ICB. So the first half of the session is going to be me. I'm going to be talking about NHS England predominantly at a national level, and then I'm handing over to colleagues in the Southwest to talk more regionally and locally. So just a little quick overview of what I'm going to cover today. So first of all, I'm going to give you an introduction to me and my role and the NHS England National SEND team as a whole. I'll then give a bit of an overview of what SEND is at a national level in NHS England, and also what it's not and where it sits in relation to other work streams, to try and unpick some of that. Then a bit looking at, so that's looking at national, then looking at sort of national, regional and ICB level and how they interrelate. And finally, a few tips to around helping understand working with your ICBs. And then, as I say, I'll pass over to my Southwest colleagues. And then at the end, we'll have a chance for some questions. So you can put questions in the chat, but they'll be picked up at the end, if that's okay with everyone. So first of all, who am I? So I'm been in the role of family care advisor in the national SEND team at NHS England for just over a year, and it was a new role. So it's it's been sort of a developing role as I've been in it. And before I kind of talk about the role itself, I just wanted to give you a bit of background to me. Some of you, I'm not quite sure who's here. I haven't looked at all the invite list, but some of you will know me. But I'm a parent carer myself, obviously, a family carer role. I've got two young sons or young people who are both neurodivergent. One's 22, one's 16. So I've been in this world for a long time. And as I'm sure is the case for many of you, as I went through, this new world of being a parent carer, I wanted to use that, what I was learning, and I got involved with the local parent carer forum, PAC in Brighton Hove. So I was on the steering group for a long time. I was then vice chair. And then finally I was chair, so I left my role of chair of Brighton Hove PAC to join NHS England, and I still sit on the PAC steering group. I'm also involved in governance, both within and outside SEND, in Brighton Hove and a bit across Sussex. So I'm governor of a local primary school and also on the management committee of our local pupil referral unit. So all that sort of is a background to me. So that's me. And so my role, so what do I do on a day-to-day basis? So it's quite varied. And this role very much brings that parent carer health perspective kind of embedded into the NHSE SEND team. My primary role, I suppose, is to advise the National Advisor for SEND, Lorraine Moroney, who I'm sure many of you will have heard speak in the past. She's been around in SEND for a long time. A lot of commenting on policy, both internal and external, to NHS England. I also sit on a number of expert reference groups and project groups, and at the moment there's a big focus, obviously, on the SEND and AP improvement plan priorities. Now, with my parent care forum background, I've also, been very keen to promote co-production, and so I advise on this both nationally and regionally. So to really kind of, not just have my own perspective in the national team, but also try to influence co-production across the board. Now, when I took this job, one of my questions to myself is, how do you make sure it's not just you there giving your voice to NHS England? And I was really pleased to find that there are strong strategic partnerships with NNPCF and Contact and a number of other organisations. So we work very closely together with them. But also at a personal level, I feel it's imperative that I remain personally connected in both with my local networks in Brighton Hove and across Sussex. So that's why I'm still on the PAC steering group, and also try to attend events where I can, but also more nationally, because I'm aware that I come from this very southeast perspective, and want to make sure I can hear what's happening across the country. So that's really integral to everything I do, is making sure I stay connected with everything on the ground. That's why I'm there. So that's me in my role, and I'm part of this national NHS England SEND team. Excuse the tiny photos. I just thought that, you know, when I was working in Brighton Hove, everything national seemed very impersonal and distant. So I just wanted to bring a little bit of the personal into here. And I think what's interesting to think about is that about 2 years ago, there was only Lorraine was SEND in NHS England, and now there's this team around her, which is a very, you know, important set of people, advisors, advising on SEND. And one of the things I think is really valuable about the team is a number of the people there work part-time, and in their other jobs they are working locally. So for example, two of the team are designated clinical officers. There's an occupational therapist, there's a former speech and language therapist, and so on. So it's a team that's not only got my parent carer voice there, but it feels very, very connected with what's going on in the ground. So that's the team. So that's me and the team I'm working with. Now, the next bit of my presentation is around what we do in SEND in NHS England at a national level, and also what we don't do and where the SEND team sits. Because I don't know about you, but when I was working in Brighton Hove and across the Sussex ICB as it was then developing, I didn't always feel like I was talking to the right person. And so understanding where SEND sits and what it does and doesn't cover in NHS organisations is really important. And I think I've worked out a few things, certainly at national level. So I'm hoping that what I tell you here might be helpful in your thoughts at local level. So this is where we sit. So here's the SEND team, and we sit in the Learning Disability and Autism programme. And we're under children and young people within that programme, alongside children, young people, learning disability and autism. And I think, you know, for me, I'm sure this is no news to many of you, but for me to find that SEND, you know, wasn't children, young people's learning disability autism was very interesting, and kind of clarified why sometimes I'd had those conversations with commissioners which were not quite aligning with what they thought they were talking about. So that was helpful to know. But having said that, so we are, you know, a small team within a big programme, but we do work very closely with other teams, and it is all about having those connections. So at the bottom, I've put a few examples of how we might work with wider teams, but a lot of it's about those ongoing conversations, knowing what each other's working on, and making sure we input into the work we do, and then at a strategic level that these are joined up. So that was just a quick slide showing the teams, you know, a number of the different teams that we work closely with. In terms of what SEND or we work on and what we don't work on, this again, I'm sure this won't be new to some of you, but one of the things I worked out while I was in the national team is if you go back to the NHS long-term plan, which was published in 2019, included a number of commitments to learning disability and autism, which included the Autism in Schools programme that many of you will have worked on, writing the dynamic support register guidance, key works for those at risk of hospital admission, and so on. And these are predominantly under learning disability and autism, but it's not what the SEND team is working on. So we're closely linked, as I said, you know, on the previous slide, but that's not what we're doing. The SEND work stream at national level in NHS England is linked predominantly, not exclusively, but predominantly linked to the statutory framework around the Children and Families Act. So at the moment, that means a real focus on the SEND reforms and the commitments in the SEND and AP improvement plan, and the delivery of the 9 change programme partnerships. So that's the main area that we're working on. As I said before, strong independence internally, but also, as we know, SEND is also all about working together across education, health and social care, as well as with parents and carers and children and young people. So we also have these strong partnerships, very close partnership with Department for Education and Department for Health and Social Care, and the others listed here. So I talked a bit about what we're not doing. Here's the 5 main SEND work streams for the National SEND team over the coming year. So I'll just talk through these very briefly. This is a whistle-stop tour, so I hope this will give you a little bit of information that then you can use to inform the work you're doing. So first of all, as I've said, the work around SEND improvement, SEND and AP improvement plan and those commitments, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. There's delivering improvement pre and post SEND area inspections. So I'm sure you're aware that there's a new framework from the inspections. Now it's mainly the regional NHS England leads who support the ICBs and give challenge. So they have oversight, but at national level we have an overview of all the inspections, and for example we collect themes that are coming out through inspections, which will then feed into strategic planning. Thirdly, there's the transfer of statutory duties. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, from clinical mission groups to integrated care boards. And so the national and regional NHS and SEND teams have been doing some heat maps, which are now annual. There were a number during the first year, but they now moved to annual. And these heat maps are an exercise where the integrated care boards self-assess against a number of criteria or key lines of inquiry, how mature they think they are. So, and one of these areas that they were self-assessing against was how they felt they had, they were doing their co-production. Now, one of the heat maps, we decided to do a bit of a deep dive into the co-production element. And the reason for this was because the ICBs were mainly, not exclusively, but mainly self-reporting that they felt they were mature. They would, they were doing well on co-production, but that wasn't really what we were hearing on the ground from parent carer forums. So I designed a series of questions for the regional NHS England SEND teams to discuss with their integrated care boards in their region, and to influence the co-production. We can't, at national level, we can't tell ICBs what to do, but what we can do is we can find routes to actually influence and try and shift the understanding, and we felt that was really important around co-production and the ICB. So that hopefully was a useful exercise. And then the final 2 things, so there's some work on designated officer functions led by Sarah Childs in the SEND team, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. And then Andrea Ferns in our team is leading on a piece of work around clinical interventions in education settings. So the next slide, I'm going to just talk about the commitments from the SEND and AP improvement plan that we're involved with. So these are 10 commitments that NHS England are involved with. The majority are being led by the Department for Education, but the 3 that NHS England are leading on is, as I said, some work around designated officer functions. So that's looking at designated clinical officer role and designated medical officer role, looking at what's best about both and trying to bring those together to ultimately aim to provide greater consistency, use what's working really well, but make it more consistent and a stronger role across the country. There's work on the ICB leadership, which I'll talk a little bit more further down. And finally, if you're in the change program partnerships, you will come across LSEC, Early Language and Support for Every Child, which is a speech and language early intervention program, and that's being jointly led in NHS England by Community Services and SEND. So that was all about what do we work on at national level, what do we not work on a national level, and where do we fit with other teams. Now I'm going to talk briefly about this national, regional and local picture, which I have to confess something I found quite confusing, and I don't imagine for a moment this is going to give you all the information you need, but it's just a little bit of information that hopefully will provide some context and help you understand the different roles at the different levels. So everything's changed because of the 2022 Health and Care Act, where we have, I'm sure you're all aware, transfer of statutory responsibilities from the CCGs over to the integrated care boards. And on the back of this, and the NHSE operating framework has been written, and I've got a link down here at the bottom. Health warning, it is pretty dense, it's got a lot of information in there, and I'm going to try and condense a little bit of it into one slide. So this framework describes the roles that NHS England, the integrated care boards, and NHS providers now play under the Health and Care Act. So what does this mean for SEND and that tiering of national, regional, ICB? So the SEND operating model. So I've started with ICBs at the top, and I've done that for a reason, which is that's where it's happening. That's where the ICBs, and they are the NHS commissioning bodies and hold the statutory roles like the executive lead for SEND and statutory functions around SEND. They have joint accountability with the local area partners for delivery of the SEND statutory duties. So they hold the accountability. So they implement the national policy that I might be commenting on in my team, but very importantly, they're rooted in SEND, place-based priorities, your SEND strategies, because it's all about the needs of local populations. So that's integrated care board level. And then you have regional NHS England teams who have oversight of the integrated care boards and provide support and challenge and work closely with DfE, so alongside joint partnerships with DfE. So the regional teams work direct with the ICBs. At national level, we rarely work directly with ICBs, that's the regional role. And the regions have joint responsibility with DfE for inspections and improvement. And finally, nationally, so alongside, some of the sort of details that I gave you right at the beginning of what are the kind of things I'm doing, we work on national policy, national statutory guidance, and that strategic overview. So strategic improvement planning with those national partners, such as Department for Education and Department for Health and Social Care, and obviously all our other partners that I've talked about. So this slide is kind of tying back a little bit what I was saying at the beginning about where does SEND sit. So thinking about what I was saying nationally, that we're in the learning disability and autism team, working closely with all these other teams. Another way of looking at it is we have 2 joint senior responsible officers for SEND, so they're responsible for the work that's planned for the national team to be carried out, and so we have the Director of Community Health and Personalisation and the Director for Learning Disability and Autism. So having 2 joint senior responsible officers is about recognising that SEND, really doesn't just sit in one place, and it cross-cuts so many different areas. And I think we could all agree, we could have senior responsible officers in a whole range of areas. So that's nationally. Regionally, the SEND function sits in different places in different regions. So in some regions, it's in learning disability and autism, others nursing and safeguarding, and one it's in children, young people and nursing. So it really varies, and that will have an impact on the focus of the work of those teams. So and who they connect with. So really worth knowing in your area who's working with who, and coming down to the ICB, find out where SEND sits in the ICB structure, and which will really help that mutual understanding of which bits they work on and which they don't work on and which they connect with. And if they're not in an area that you think sensible, just find out how they're connecting with others that will help you in your co-production. So my final bit is a little bit about ICBs themselves and SEND. So first of all, on a policy level, and this area, so the guidance around the executive lead roles was actually one of the first things I commented on in about the first 2 weeks of arriving into NHS England. So it's really interesting to see this being used now. So there are new statutory roles within the integrated care boards around particular areas. So they have responsibility, so they call executive lead roles, and you can see there's 6 of them here. Mental health is slightly separate, but effectively there's 6 executive lead roles, and one of them is for children and young people with SEND. But I think as you know, parent care reform leads, we know that actually probably all of these are related to SEND. So sometimes the executive lead will be the same person for different areas of responsibility, which could be really helpful. But if not, it's knowing, am I talking to the right person, or am I, contacting the right person around different areas of SEND? So for example, if you were working on neurodevelopmental pathways, it might be that sits under mental health, or it could be, I know in Brighton Hove it crosses over between mental health and I think learning disability and autism, but I could be wrong about that. So knowing, which areas of work fit under, come under different areas is important to make sure you're talking to the right person. And then there's the executive guidance, I say, the link's here, and it includes the key areas of work for the SEND executive leads, and includes one around co-production. So do read that guidance and use that in your conversations with your ICBs. And my very last slide is coming back to my area, Sussex, and a bit of learning from the outside, from their website. What information can you get from there? So maybe if you're not, connecting with the ICB directly, what information could be found in the local website? So I had a little trawl of the Sussex one, and just very quickly going through this. For example, they had an inspection, a SEND area inspection recently, in which case you should find the report on their website if you haven't received it already, which can give you information, obviously, about areas that the inspectors have decided need work on in your area. Finding out how the ICB is set up in terms of governance, finding out who your place-based directors for SEND are. This might be able to find this in terms of their governance structures, so that's worth a look. Who's the ICB executive lead for SEND? So the executive lead might be referenced in the inspection report, or in the governance structures, or elsewhere, but those are two places you could look. And then these last two are the statutory documents that the integrated care partnerships need to publish. So one is the integrated care strategy. So nationally we've been through all the strategies and the joint forward plans, looking for what are their plans for SEND. So in the strategy, you're less likely to find something about SEND because it's a much more broad brush document, but see what it says for children and young people. There might be things there that are important for you to get involved with. But the joint forward plan, which is a very variable across the country, but is a more detailed delivery plan of how they're going to, make the commitments in their strategy. Have a look and see, because in some of the plans, they have quite a lot of detail about work around SEND. So, knowing what they've said they're going to do, even if they haven't told you direct, can be useful. So that's me. Thank you very much for having me. I'm now going to pass over to Rihanna and Tina to talk a bit more regionally and get into the nitty-gritty of things closer to the ground.
My apologies. Shall I introduce myself again? I'm so sorry.
Please do.
Technology has not been kind this last week, so you don't have my NHSE background either, but luckily not washing. I'm going to take you through some slides, and Tina, hand over to you.
Thank you. Next slide then, please, Rihanna, if you can. So this is the Southwest Regional team. So we've got Mark Tucker, Rihanna Stevens is obviously on the call, Gemma Blackmore, me, and our regional admin for the PCFs, which is Ruth Hobbs, and she's based in Somerset. So to give you an overview of what the Southwest NNPCF does, we undertook 324 hours of work, which is 46 days equivalent, and we're really fortunate actually in the Southwest, because we are funded for key pieces of work to be able to attend some of this work. It's a very short list. The list actually is quite long, and Rihanna's been very kind and has put it into boxes for me, because our intervals, which is where we log all of our hours, doesn't do this necessarily for me. But the work that we do is not limited to these little boxes. We do way more than this on this list, but the slide isn't big enough to put all of the work that we do. But it's really important that if I don't sit on some of this stuff, we have national reps who do, and some of them are actually on the call today. So we work through anything that needs parental sort of perspective onto it. And we also are very lucky as well in the Southwest. We do have a regional children's and young people's participation group. So all the children and young people's participation groups that run in local authority areas do feed into our regional one as well. So we've got not just parent carer aspect to these things, but also children and young people as well. They don't sit on all the meetings just yet because they're not quite big enough. They haven't got capacity to do that, but they are very much part of the integration of the regional work and are feeding in more and more of these works here. But we'll touch on some of these projects and working groups as we move on in our presentation. So not just funding that comes directly to the NNPCF to carry out the work in the Southwest, we are lucky enough as well to get funding for forums, and it's only little bits of funding, but it does such an amazing lots of work. So in lockdown, where we couldn't do lots of our work because we weren't allowed to meet face to face, they were able to bid on £1,000 per forum. Now, every forum has the opportunity to do this, no matter what their structure, because the regional funds are held within a PCF. And they literally have the experience then of bidding for monies, and then they receive monies as part of the work that they do. So in lockdown, they were able to deliver wellbeing boxes for families that were literally pushed through the letterbox. That had some really good feedback, and it included leaflets to groups that could help them. There was also tea, coffee, biscuit sachets in the box, colouring books for adults, and so they was able to actually self-help and were part of online groups as well. Payment towards sensory library equipment, that was in Swindon. Picnic and painting watercolour class on the beach was in the Isles of Scilly, and gym class for parent carers was actually part of a Wiltshire initiative that actually they could do a gym class, keep fit class, or actually have so many sessions at their local gym. We then moved on the following year, and they were able to bid on £2,666 per forum. Again, it was open to everybody, and they could then use the money to either use the money in their local area. So if you had like a local authority area, so Somerset, for instance, their ICB is Somerset. But then when you go to North Somerset, and I'm sure Kenton will talk about it in a moment, they then collaborated in their ICB network area. So there was 3 forums, and they produced a sensory processing video, which it has been absolutely detrimental to families to find out more information about sensory processing. And so it's literally just small bits of money that comes through forums, but it's essential for our forums to do our work. So some of our notable pieces of work that we're renowned for in our Southwest footprint is, so the emissions avoidance booklets were £5,000 from national funding actually. Each region could bid for £5,000 and we decided to do ours on emissions avoidance booklets. The booklets are currently digital and there's many forms of it. They are predominantly for ICB areas or PCF footprint areas. And they're very, very simple. They literally do step by step of what could you do to stop your young person being admitted into Tier 4 mental health beds for those children and people who have got learning disability and autism. They have been really helpful in other guises as well. Oh, it's going ahead again. It actually, we've used them as well when families have had to make decisions about their schools when residential settings have closed. So it's been really, really helpful. Those booklets collectively have had views of 15,000. If you email me at the Southwest email address, then I will gladly share you the list of the booklets and you can have a look for yourself. There is a generalised national one as well, which is what the national team wanted. And that just gives you guidance of where to go and what you can do and the steps that you can put in place before you get to that Tier 4 bed. The other thing that we've done is transition. So we've done a regional transitions event. And that was £30,000 regionally, and that was where we actually conducted case studies, surveys, and produced a really fantastic report. Ruth did in Somerset. She produced a really good report about what does a good transition look like. And when we say transition, we mean all transitions, whether it's inter-school transitions, phase transfer transitions, or whether or not it's children's services to adult services transitions too. So have a look at that as well. It's a digital report that can be downloaded and printed off if you need it. I'll let Rihanna speak if she can, because she's very passionate about autism in schools. Do you want to come on in?
This is a wonderful project and I think really allows time to focus on a school's initiative that was absolutely parent-led from the outset, and the particular bonus I think of the way that we've worked in the Southwest is that we've actually had that parent-led focus with Tina from the outset, writing a bid, which I think actually speaks hugely for the recognition of parent carers and families as a workforce and being able to shape the services that they really want. I think it's said that in terms of budget, that it's a national programme that we were able to start with 2 areas in region, with a lot of energy and passion and hard work from all parent carer forums and our ICB areas, but particularly from Tina. There are now 5 out of 7 ICBs within the Southwest and a potential to expand. We now have 100 schools in pilots over the Southwest, and that makes up nearly a quarter of those in the national pilot. We'd really like to continue growing that support and recognise that as an example, BCP, one of the first areas alongside Dorset ICB, have been able to have a support offer that has been co-produced in the design of their own project. It has a pre-diagnostic support offer for 1,000 families at the moment, and it's growing.
Yeah, thank you. And notice that there's Rafa's probably muttering in the background at Rihanna's house. So yeah, the pre-diagnostic support is really important, and it's more than likely going to double in that one area, so the BCP area alone. Other pilots in the Southwest, including Cornwall, Somerset, Devon, and that's the whole of Devon, that's the Devon ICB footprint, and Dorset, will be looking at the pre-diagnostic support as part of the offer, realising actually that's really important. It's not just those that have got a diagnosis, but actually those who are either waiting for a diagnosis or on the pathway, or those that might suspect that their child's got autism but don't actually know where to go and where to look, and don't know the strategies, which is really important to us. So the question is, why us? Oh, it's gone again. So people often ask, why is the Southwest so different? I don't think we're that different, to be honest, but we do work really cohesively together as a team. There's forums and I communicate a lot. I know the forums really well. I know the NHS England SEND team really, really well. We've catch up actually every week. And so, you know, we have lots of conversations. Sometimes they're tricky and challenging, and sometimes it's an agreement of, yes, we need to do more. And sometimes they come to me and say, right, we need to change this. This is what we're hearing. How can we support PCFs to do the work that's needed? And so it is that conduit, that real sort of conversation of what we can do to support each other. But that is the key word. We are supportive of one another. And so this is where the little pots of money do come into their own. And it has allowed little forums to strengthen and have the experience of putting in bids, which they wouldn't normally have the experience of, because obviously being an unconstituted group, so they're not a KIC, they're not a charity, they're not a CIO, they won't be able to bid on some money sometimes. So it has given them that experience to be able to do that and to run bids just the same as everybody else that are in our region that might be a large KIC, for instance, or a large charity. So it is about equity, which I think is really, really important as a PCF region. So it is very simply about relationships. It is about trust. It is about respect, self-awareness, inclusion, and very much an open communication channel. And I'm glad Rihanna's nodding. And I always put a quote in a lot of my presentations. So I think this one is really, really important. So it's the fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And in the Southwest, in regards to NHS England and the work that we do there, it certainly is the case. And next slide, please. I'm just conscious of time and Kenton needs to come in. Right, you need to speak to this because I didn't want this slide in, so I'm going to blame you for this slide.
And I'm absolutely determined that nothing will stop me being able to say a huge thank you and congratulations. I felt this was really, really important to put this slide in. Tina, our very, very special Tina, received an OBE in the King's Birthday Honours List for the work that you've done to support special educational needs and disabilities. Incredibly humble about it. And I think that what this really resonates for me is just the broad way that I want to see success being able to be shown and defined in the world of special educational needs and disabilities. I couldn't have done it without parents and carers that I've met and the Somerset Forum regional and national forum teams. I think what's really, really been important for me, coming into this role, Children, Young People Lead with the Learning Disability and Autism programme, is just how much communication really matters, and actually taking it as a virtual team, being able to work with Tina as though we were in the same office, and that extends to all parents and carers in the Southwest. I don't think that at the moment it's enough, and I think that particular quote that we've just shown, I'd like the fight to be less, but the energy and the enthusiasm, as I say, is coming together to make that work for us as a region, nationally, and better outcomes for children, families and carers.
And that's exactly why we work together as a team, because it's just so easy to do. When you've got people in NHS England regional teams saying that, regardless of this slide in front of me, is key, that actually we can't do it alone, we have to do it together. And it's really, really important that we have those communications. Is just our last slide now? Can we just take this slide off? But thank you. So thank you for this. We're going to now hand over to the Anton Deck, I believe, of North Somerset ICB area. I don't say that, they say that. So over to Mark and Kenton, who will talk about what it's like in an ICB level in the Southwest. Thank you. Over to you.
Lovely. Thank you, Tina. Yes, Kenton, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yes, thanks, Mark. Yes, so I'm Kenton Mee. I lead North Somerset Parent Carer Forum. So yeah, lovely to see you all today.
Yeah, and yeah, certainly good afternoon. Thanks for the invitation today. So my name's Mark Hemmings, and I'm the Children's Performance Manager working for Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloss Integrated Care Board. And Kenton and I would like to share with you how we've kind of developed our working relationship and some of the things that we've been up to together. So we've only got 2 or 3 slides, so I'll just share those hopefully. So yes, so clownfish and anemones. So I expect many of you will be familiar with clownfish from Finding Nemo, but I wonder if you knew, I certainly didn't until last week, that clownfish and anemones have this partnership way of working, which, if you're interested in the technical term, you could drop it in when you're having your tea tonight. Symbiotic mutualism, it's called, but it's basically a partnership way of working that provides benefits to both. And the anemone provides the clownfish with a safe place to live and eat, and in return, the clownfish provides food for the anemone and chases away predators like butterfly fish that feed on anemones. And when I found this out a couple of weeks ago, I thought, oh, that's absolutely, we can draw parallels for how our working partnership and relationship between the Parent Carer Forum and the ICB has developed over the last 4 or 5 years. We are mutually supportive of one another, and that ensures that we thrive and we achieve, which broadly translates to supporting our young people and their families to have good experiences and good outcomes. But that doesn't happen by accident, of course. It takes an awful lot of hard work. And if we go on to the next slide, please, Diana, I think Kenton's going to just talk about some of the things that we needed to put in place. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so these might seem really obvious, but these are essential building blocks to our symbiotic mutualism. Just managed to say that. Thanks for chucking that one in, Mark. So yeah, we need good communication. It needs to be regular, in person, and virtual. You've just got to really build that communication links with your ICB, and vice versa. Listening, again, actually hearing what's going on, listening to what's happening out there, and then acting upon it is absolutely essential if we're going to see progress locally. Being really transparent and really clear with each other around the challenges, around just the different ways of working is really important. Coming on to honesty, sometimes that can be hard, and people come with different sort of guarded ways of working or ways of that they're concerned about how they'll be perceived. But actually, honesty really does break down a lot of barriers if you can just be that open and transparent approach between you. So then perseverance, I think anybody within the Parent Carer Forum world will know perseverance is absolutely essential. There will be highs and lows within the ways that we work together, but if we persevere, we can really get things working well. And then really coming back to that sort of co-productive approach, working together from the beginning is really important. Mark?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Kenton. And I just want to emphasize it's very much a two-way process. It doesn't work one way. Both of us have to adhere to those kind of principles. And in turn and over time, hopefully we get Tina mentioned these in her presentation, we get that kind of trust of working together, but that takes time to develop. You can't rush it. It just needs to evolve over time. And also, I think with trust comes that respect as well. We're not always going to agree with one another, but that's all part of the process. We need to hear what each group of people are saying, listen to it, as Kenton's just been describing, and then move on from there. And the last bit I just wanted to mention was around investment, because it's really important that we invest in the Parent Carer Forums, both in funding, in actual resource, pounds, I was going to say shillings and pence, then that dates me a bit, doesn't it? But also in kind as well. It's absolutely vital that the PCFs are resourced properly to be sustainable, but also to meet the really increasing demands in engagement and participation and co-production, which the ICB cannot do that without the PCF functioning really, really well. But I'm going to hand over now to no, I'm not. I'm going to just talk about very briefly. Next slide, Diana. Sorry. Yeah, I did mention it takes time for this to happen. And it's a bit like a life cycle. You'll be familiar with that from primary school, expect the life cycle of the oak tree. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't rush it. You just have to really work at it. It often takes quite a long time. Kenta and I have been working together for probably 4 or 5 years, maybe slightly longer now, certainly years. And one thing is absolutely for sure, though, that snag at the top, there will be highs and lows along the way. There will be successes, but there will also be times when you really need to work on your relationship. So you need to be prepared for that. And sometimes it's about personalities and people, and inevitably in the world in which we work, people move on, they go on to promotion, or they retire, or whatever it is, and you may be faced with almost starting all over again. I have the privilege of working in 3 separate local areas: Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire. They're the same but different in lots of ways. And I've seen this cycle happen over the last 10 years that I've been working in the area, and that kind of personal relationship and building it up is so really important to get that trust and respect. But sometimes people leave and you have to start all over again. So it's a big deep breath, but you need to get cracking again. But it's absolutely worth all the effort because of the mutual benefits that it provides for our young people and families in our local area. So yes, I'm now going to hand over to Kenta to tell you about what some of those kind of benefits are and some of the more exciting things that we've been up to.
Thanks, Mark. So yeah, some of the mutual benefits, I think, clarity of purpose is a real good starting place, not just for us as a forum to know what we're doing, but actually for our colleagues in the ICB to know what we're doing, and that we're representing that parent carer collective voice. We're there to challenge, but we're not there to campaign, and we're there to be that constructive relationship, and that working together effectively is really important. Planning in sort of scheduled working meetings is really helpful, I think, not just for the ICB, but for ourselves in really enabling us to discuss the ongoing and emerging issues that we've got locally. And that's really beneficial in terms of closing a loop of being able to feed back to our parents and carers, but also ensuring that the ICB are aware of what's going on from a parent carer perspective. And equally, that we're aware of the challenges that our local ICB are facing around their healthcare provision, whether that's recruitment or many other issues. Additional core funding, that is a real key benefit in terms of getting that working relationship working well, in that it brings additional resources into our parent carer forum that can help us be that positive support to parent carers, as well as that collective voice helping us to reach more parents and carers is really, really key in terms of being that collective voice for all of our community. Our survey that we do is key again in terms of just ensuring we're bringing that family experience and bringing that to the table in a really clear way for ICB, and articulating that in a way that really just helps everybody's understanding. And I suppose co-production, we must highlight, when you're getting that relationship working well, then co-production just happens more naturally, and we can be commissioned as well to really support pieces of work from that beginning, that earliest thought and that concept. And I think some examples that we've got locally, the Key Worker project was a key example of coming together with the ICB from the start and actually really developing that team in terms of how it would look, how it would deliver for the local community. And I suppose it's worth mentioning at this point as well, from a parent carer perspective, understanding, as Diana was saying earlier, understanding the makeup of your local ICB is really important. We're across, our ICB is across 3 local areas, so we work very closely with our parent carer forum colleagues in Bristol and South Gloss, and we'll often join together in work in representing that collectively. Another piece of work just being developed is a neurodiversity transformation project, where the 3 parent carer forums are taking a real lead in terms of taking that forward and making sure that we've got all the information from the outset of the project in terms of informing a way forward. locally. Autism in schools, again, was mentioned earlier. Again, that's where the ICB has been able to devolve some funding to each of the forums to really look at our local areas and develop that specifically for the needs in our individual areas, and that's been really key. Essentially, helping parent carer forums build into a professional organisation, but keeping parent carers at the centre of what we do is really important. Next slide, please. So overcoming inevitable challenges. I think any of us working in the parent care forum world would know that we're not short of challenges, but we can really sort of overcome those. We can make dedicated and regular time for each other within the system to really sort of understand and unpick any issues and get to the challenges quickly and not letting things escalate. Parent care forums need to take time to understand your local healthcare system, and that comes back to what Diana was saying earlier. Every health system is slightly different in the different areas, and it's really important that as parent care forums we understand that, and then we can understand that there's different roles that our colleagues in the ICB have, and they can understand as well the role of the parent care forum and the limitations that may have, but also the potential that we can really take forward. It's really important that we develop a strong strategic voice within the ICB system, and I think that's where knowing who are the key contacts, you can really sort of target your conversations effectively to really help to affect change positively locally. Recognising the power of putting an event on was something I just wanted to highlight, really. It's something that's worked really well in North Somerset, is just to bring everybody together, bringing stakeholders across the whole system, across education, across health, along with our parent carers. It just breaks down so many barriers, and I would urge anyone to sort of explore different options of getting that working in your local area, because it does make a huge difference in just breaking down barriers and bringing people together. So I think it's really just always coming back to why we're working together. It's all about keeping the experience and outcomes of our families at the very centre of our plans, activities and representation. Making a difference for our children, young people and families can be really successful, but sometimes it can be frustratingly slow. But if we stick with these positive relationships, we really can make a difference. And we just keep coming back to, we're here to make a difference for our parent carers, for our families, for our young peoples, and see outcomes for our families really improve. So thank you. I think am I handing back for a question and answer session? I'm not sure whether Diana or Tina are picking up on that.
We are. There is so this is an opportunity for those people. I know you can't control your camera or your mics, but we have magical powers here. So if you do want to ask a question, please put your hand up and then we can unlock you. But we do have a question in the chat, actually, very early on from Claire. Let me just find it a second. So whose job is it to make sure that there is a DMO or DCO, so that's designated medical officer or designated clinical officer because of the acronyms, in the NHS? We haven't had a DMO for a year now, and a temporary shared DCO with other local LA who has now left, but neither PCF were involved in the appointment of the new one. I've not been told who it is yet. So who has that overarching responsibility to make sure that that happens? Anyone?
Want me to answer, Tina?
That'd be grand, please.
So first to say, so it's not actually a statutory role. So it's in the code of practice. So there isn't an obligation to have that role, but most areas obviously do. And it's very rare to have both a designated clinical officer and a DMO. So you would expect to have one or the other. In terms of responsibility, if you go back to that executive lead guidance I gave the link to, so one of the responsibilities of the SEND executive lead is ensuring sufficient support, capacity and resource for the role of designated officers for SEND, as in DCOs and DMOs, to fulfil the role within the ICB and at place in accordance with the current code of practice. So as I say, it's not statutory in the current code of practice, but it is there. This will involve working with NHS England to review roles and functions. So effectively, it's the executive SEND lead who is responsible, but you can't actually tell them they're breaking the law if they don't have one. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think so. Rhianna, did you want to add anything into that? Who's got sticky mic again? She's got sticky mic. Technology. Although Mark Tucker is in the call, Mark, did you want to add anything to this? I'm going to open up your mic and camera since poor Rhianna has got technical issues.
Let me just
Mark.
come on.
Yes.
Let me just come on in there. Hi everybody. Lovely to see you all. A great presentation. Really enjoyed it. It's lovely to see what we're doing in the Southwest and be reminded of it sometimes. I think Diana, I think you hit the ticket really well in that sense. It's, you know, I sort of sit in with the hat of as a health SEND advisor, and it is something that we would recommend is in place across the Southwest. You know, we certainly look to health systems to have good commissioning, capacity and ability, good executive leadership, and to have that sort of front line sort of DCO, DMO role there that is really good around sort of the quality assurance side of things. But as you say, it's not a statutory role at this moment in time.
Oh yeah, Jane, do you want to come in?
Yeah, it's more a comment really, just to say, wow, it's just phenomenal what you're doing. Absolutely incredible across your region. And how do we get this? How do we get this rolled out? Because we can see the benefits, we can see the cost savings, we can see the benefits on all sides. How do we together as NNPCF and NHS England and regional, how do we make sure that this somehow, we can't just let it stop here as an example of good practice, because it's incredible what you've done, and there's just such a lot that other regions can share from and can build on. So just a massive thank you.
Oh,
What you've
thank
done as
you.
well.
Thank you, Jane. As a region, we've been doing it for years. This is nothing new for us. We've probably been doing it. Well, I've been in roles coming up 7 years, and we've been doing it for probably about 6. And I'm really lucky to have a really good team. And I think, you know, it starts with a conversation, but it also is about a shared ethos. Every single one of people on this call now share the ethos of co-production, and actually the not just that, but the value in that. And so it does make our conversations a lot easier. That said, some local ICB areas do not fund forums still, even to this day in the Southwest. We are not 100% there. We are not perfect by any shape of the imagination, but we were working really hard to make sure that it's an equitable system for all. And I think that's the key, is that we constantly have these conversations and these pushes. And it's not just Mark, Rhianna, Gemma, and even Graham, who sits above Mark and Rhianna. It's everybody, all the forums, all the ICB commissioners know exactly how we sit, and money is tight, so there's not a lot of money in the system sloshing around. But I think it is about having those good, valid conversations around the value in that. Use and abuse us as an example. We've proven that actually we can achieve a lot with very small pots of money. You know, the first bids were actually £15,000 in total, because we have 15 forums, and every single forum could apply for that £1,000, and everybody did. So I think it's just showing that it can be done, and please do use and abuse us as an example. We don't mind. Kenton's laughing, but we really don't mind, because if it means that you can then do very small projects for very small pots of money to prove that it can happen, the hope is then that it becomes bigger, to the point now we've got projects regionally that where we get 30 or 40,000 pounds to do a regional project. And it also works, you know, we're very lucky. Mark's on the call here, Mark Hemmings, who's a really good commissioner, and it makes our conversations a lot easier. But it is just communicating. Anything to add, Kenton? You're nodding.
Yeah, I would just say, I think start small, and build up. You've got to build up the capacity within your own teams. You've got to build up the knowledge and the networking. And I think that's where the Southwest has been particularly successful across forums is, we've relied on each other to really connect across the Southwest. How are you doing this? How are you solving this problem? Who would you go to in this circumstance? And actually that's where Tina's leadership, since I came in since 2018, has actually really had a huge benefit in terms of connecting us all together, getting us working well. But it is connect with your local forums. If there are 3 forums that sit under an ICB area, work together. Don't do it by yourself. Connect and work together and solve those problems collectively. And it does make it a lot easier if you can share the load, and not having to take it all on just yourself or your own forum. So yeah, lots of positives.
Definitely.
Is there any, can I just add that, because that is happening in a lot of, I'm the Yorkshire and Humber regional rep, so I work with Tina, and it is happening, the work is happening in quite a lot of our regions, our areas, when people are coming together, but we all know that there are financial restraints. Do you have any monitoring or evidence that you can share that people who are already working in this way could that might support them to put proposals forward? Or do you have any monitoring on it? How do you monitor what you've spent? Or
it's very loose in the region, I have to say. But we do, I mean, obviously our projects speak for itself. To spend £5,000 on a load of booklets that are all digital and have 15,000 plus views that have helped families, that's how we monitor how we do good work. And certainly in local authority areas with Kenton and Mark, there is definitely monitoring there, and certainly with the Autism in Schools project we are monitoring that, and we do feedback that as well. So I think it's the fact that, whilst I may have done, it's not me, whilst we may have done through quite a lot of work regionally at different points, it's not just me, it is a team of us. I use all my national reps. Kenton sat on some regional stuff as well, and there's others that do, but it's just having that parent carer input, and our resources are much better because of it. So one of the work streams that we're currently doing is around CETRs and the quality assurance around that, and we have a parent carer that sits on the working group, and we sit on the steering group as well, just to show that actually those people who do carry out CETRs but actually are a parent carer as well, that information is so vital in order to make sure that the quality assurance works. And we've done lots of different other stuff that I could reel off. I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody who wants to talk about it. Kenton knows, and you can tell by this call, I talk for Britain, and I'm really passionate about the stuff that we do with health in our region. We're very, very fortunate, and that doesn't dispute the work that we do. We are lucky because we get to do it, but more than happy to have a conversation with anybody who wants to have a conversation with me about it.
Thanks, Tina. Thank you.
I'm just conscious of time. Anybody else? Lots of people have stayed on. A few people have left, which is understandable because we've run over. Anything?
There's a question here, Tina. Where can PCS find out about regional NHSE funding for forums that was referred to? Do you want to take that?
So it is about having a conversation with your regional SEND leads in your region. It is about having a conversation with your regional representative for the National Network of Parent Care Forums. Unfortunately, currently there's only 2 regions that do fund regional work, which is the Southwest and the Northeast, not Northeast, sorry, the East of England. The Northeast is slightly different. They are in the East of England, it's for specific work streams and specific work, whereas in the Southwest we are completely different. slightly bonkers, but completely different, in that we do funding for regional work, which is what myself and national reps cover, and then we do regional pots of money as well. So it's all about having a conversation with your NNPCF regional lead, and then having a conversation with the regional send leads for NHS England, and just starting that conversation. It is not it doesn't happen simultaneously. Like I said, we're the only region that does this. This is what we do, and like I said, it just is. We're just lucky with the people we get to work with who understand this, and it's part of their ethos. I wish I had a simpler answer, but unfortunately I don't. Anybody else? Anything else? Amanda Elliott, you're on the call. Is there anything you want to add from a Contact's health lead perspective?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, my role at Contact is to support any forums that want help with engaging with health services or your local NHS system, so the ICBs. I do have a something I compiled painstakingly last year, a database of all the executive leads for Down syndrome send. Some of them may have changed. I noticed one had the other day, but so if you want some help, you can always message me, and I'm a resource. So if you haven't got a great deal capacity, or you're having to do a lot of this stuff outside your MOU, which I think someone in Swindon mentioned, that, you know, I only work 3 days a week, but I am here if you wanted another body in the room, or a little help with prep, or just writing a letter to but definitely the one message I've definitely got from this is collaborating with your forums in your ICB area is absolutely key, because it is like they can feel very remote and cover a lot of areas. I think is it only Lincolnshire where there's one ICB and one council, so therefore in theory one forum. So you know,
Somerset and Gloucester are the same.
Oh, well, that in some ways that's organisationally more convenient, but it's, you know, there's a lot going on. I mean, you know, you may want to raise issues with your ICB about the underspends on the Learning Disability and Autism budget that's been reported in the Health Service Journal, because to bail out, they're now being told they can use some of that to bail out the issues with the strikes and inflation. It's just something that's come to my attention. My question is why there are underspends on those budgets, because they're very much for the children that are probably covered in Tina's emission avoidance leaflet. So there are pots of money there, and if you don't try and put pressure on them to use them, they will get repurposed for you know, other parts of the local health service, which are all in need. I mean, there's no denying, but that money is specifically. So yeah, I'm here for that. I send a monthly update for forums about stuff that's happening in health, but I am here. Please message me and invite me to any of your regional or local forum meetings, and I will do what I can. I'm here to help you, really.
Thank you, Amanda, and your email has been put into the chat. So
fabulous, thank you.
Any forums on the call who want to get in touch with Amanda, please do. I think we can wind the session up now. Thank you so much, Kenton, Diana, Mark, Rihanna, and Mark, who's now left the call, for hopping on. It's really, really great to see you all, and thank you very much for your input into this presentation. Really appreciate it. And apologies everybody for the tech issues, but new teams, what can we say? Stick to classic, that's what I'm saying. Thank you everybody, have a good afternoon, and but thank you very much. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.